2 years ago, and then a few months after that, the world shut down. So hopefully, I had nothing to do with that. So,
Are you sure?
I've been to China. It was several years before that, so I don't think it was that. Thank you very much for this opportunity. That's actually Bernie and I were talking about. Men of Aim is a men's ministry we started in 2003, talking about invitations. Peoria area, I go to a men's breakfast. There's 100 people there, and I'm like, this is fantastic. We must have guys from everywhere. I was one of 3 people not from the host church. I talked to the speaker who was traveled the nation. He said, Rich, I could come back to town week after week after week. Different churches, different denominations. It's almost always 95+% from the host church. And so out of that, in October of 2003, I said, well, I'll send an email out of men's events. Talking about invitations, it's not about, when you ask an invitation, Pat Morley, we talked a little bit about earlier, a little video clip I used to use in training where he talks about a bad invitation. It's like, well, if you're not doing anything on Saturday, I think it'd be great if you could maybe join us. And it's really helped me a lot. And, God, Jesus has a lot for you, and he gives all these reasons. You just cringe, and I play the whole thing, and even though by the end it's like everyone's like, just turn it off, and people say, well, that's a terrible invitation, but it's not as bad as an invitation not given. The invitation, when you share with another man about this breakfast, about the men's retreat, about a movie Christian movie that's coming out, whatever it might be, your job is not to make them sure they're there. Too often we put so much pressure on the invitation. Make sure all your friends are here. Your invitation is let them know. They can make the decision if they want to go to this or that. Let the Holy Spirit convict them if that's something they should drop everything and go. Let them make the decision, can they afford this or can they not? If you feel convicted they can't afford it and you can, offer to pay for it. But it's not your job to get them to accept the invitation, just share it with them. So, okay, off of that soapbox. All right. I want to think back 1983. First off, is there anyone here who was not around in 1983? All right, I knew there'd be a few. Fantastic. Hey guys, next month let's get a few more guys here that weren't around in 1983. All right? Okay, men's events. When I got into men's ministry, I was about 30 years old. It was so cool. It's the one place I could be a young man in men's ministry, because everyone else was in their 60s and late 50s and all that, which seemed a lot older back then. I will say that much. But so 38 years ago, what were you struggling with? I love how when you go to different Bible stories, sometimes it's a parable just to share something. So it's kind of like, well, there was a man who did this, there was this, and it's just kind of it's a parable tell story. But then sometimes you get where there's specific details. So in 1983, the Baltimore Orioles had just won the World Series with this young second-year shortstop named Cal Ripken Jr. Young Cal Ripken Jr. Wow, anyway. You had the Sixers with Moses Malone and Dr. J had just won the NBA World Championship. So that gives you an idea of just how long ago that 38 years ago. And there's a story in John 5 where healing at the pool where Jesus comes and he finds this guy who had been invalid for 38 years. They didn't say he was 38 years old. They said he'd been invalid for 38 years. So maybe he was 38, but maybe he was 15 when that happened and now he's 53. Yes, okay, all right. Engineer, I better have gotten that right. So Jesus asked him a question, do you want to get well? And you read this and you think, wait, he was an invalid for 38 years and Jesus asked him, do you want to get well? Was his answer, yes, absolutely, Jesus, I want to get well? No, his answer was like, well, when the water stirs, there's no one here to help me get in. And so, and you think, well, why would you not just ask for help for 38 years? Well, I guarantee you there's men in this room who have struggled with something for 38 years or more. But with that 38 years, if you have that question of do you want to get well from whatever it is, addictions or marital problems or job issues or whatever, if in 38 years you hear the question, do you want to get well, and your answer is, then nothing's going to matter. 38 years is going to become 39, and it's going to become 40, and just keep going. One of my favorite films, I realize we're not to Thanksgiving yet, but one of my favorite films or stories of all time is A Christmas Carol from Dickens. And I don't care if it's, I like George C. Scott's my favorite, but the Alistair Sims, the Muppets, Rich Little, I don't care. I love them all. I watch all of them. And one of my favorite scenes of that every time in every episode is when Marley's ghost comes back and speaks to Scrooge. And they comes back, and he's scared when he realizes who he is, and he goes some great lines there. It's like they're more of the gravy than of the grave with you, and I just love a lot of the back and forth there. But then he starts to talk about the chains, and he's got lock boxes and chains and all this stuff, and he starts telling about it. And there's a line in there where he says, "The chains I wear in death, I built in life. I built them link by link and yard by yard." And I just thought that is so powerful to what we're dealing with in our lives. And so we're going to talk specifically about pornography, but this goes with any addiction, any problem issue we've had, link by link, yard by yard. In the DVD, I'll mention a little bit of Somebody's Daughter. When you watch the feature-length documentary that started that, it says every addiction starts with a soft choice. It's a quiet compromise. What's the harm? It's not hurting anybody. And so often that's what happens. So how many of us with our sons or ourselves when we were young, or nieces and nephews, you see a little 2-year-old boy with a little 3-year-old girl or similar ages? Oh, is that your girlfriend? You gonna marry her someday? You kind of joke about this, and that's nothing harmful with that. That's just a link. It doesn't really matter. And then a little bit later, they get a little bit older, and you kind of still joke about it. But then suddenly you see things like on Netflix where 3-4-year-old dance troupes are doing moves and dances that there's no business having girls that young doing, and okay, well, that isn't a good thing. And then a little bit later, they get a few years old, and 5, 6 maybe, they see, our sons see something that probably they shouldn't see, whether it's an older sister heading crossing a towel or something. They're like, whoa, I don't know what that is, but I should somehow like that. And it's not critical, it's not terrible. And then swimsuit issues come out, back years ago, and they used to have swimsuits on the Swimsuit Issue, and you think, oh, okay, well, you start looking at that, and we could go around this room, and there's probably the Polina Poroscova years and the Christy Brinkley years, and there's all the different years in there. There's a TV show called Young Sheldon, kind of spin off of Big Bang Theory. And 87 was when I was on my way to the NBA All-Star game when my first episode of, or first issue of the Swimsuit Issue came that was actually mailed to the house. And I did read every article, but you sit there and you think, you read that. Well, Young Sheldon, it reached the point where several years in our marriage, I had several years of those. I'm like, I need to get rid of those. I just got convicted about it. I need to get rid of them. And then part of me said, sell them on eBay. And I was like, yeah, I could sell. It's like, no, I don't want to put them in someone else's house to be a hurdle for that. So we tore them up, threw them away, got rid of them, wouldn't do anything. But in Young Sheldon, go watch this. Here's a sitcom. Boom, his older brother, they're trying to set the stage. It's set in the 80s, and he holds up, and he has a SI issue, and it's the 1988 version with Elle Macpherson on the cover. It's like, oh, man. And I remember those things, because that's still a link that was still tied there. But as you go on, for a lot of people, it's something that seems you wouldn't even think about. Sears catalog, the lingerie pages, Sunday ads. We could go around this room and ask questions, and pretty much everyone's going to have one story or another. And then, you get teenage years for most people. Most kids today are exposed before 10 years old to porn. Decades ago, that might have been in the mid-teens. It was to your dad's uncle's older brother's Playboy magazine or whatever magazine it might be. Well, then it reached the point where internet comes along, and Playboy said, we're not going to show nudity anymore. And people started getting all excited and say, yay, we won, they're not showing nudity. No, guys, we lost. Playboy said nobody cares about nudity in our magazine anymore because there's so much on the internet you can get for free. And so then you just keep building these chains. The point's there, right? Please tell me the point's there, because I have another half bucket here. Okay, all right, thanks. First time I ever did this, I didn't think about the weight. And I'm going through it, I'm getting fine like this, and at the end, and I'm finished, the guy comes up and goes, it was so powerful, because when you got weighted down, you couldn't look up to see God. And I'm like, yes, it was a very spiritual message I was trying to share there. I couldn't hold myself up anymore. So you have all these different things going through. But then what happens? And then you think, oh, I want to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm so focused. I got rid of it. Well, maybe not get rid of it just yet, because I've had a long week. I'm stressful. They keep it. But then eventually at some point you get to the weekend, you get to Sunday night, Saturday night, get to Sunday morning, and it's time to get up, and you know what time it is. It's time to go to church. So it doesn't matter how weighted down or how stressed you are. You put in your nice clean shirt. You put your nice clean shirt over all those chains and all that dirty. Oh, better get rid of that. Don't want people to know that's there. How are you, Rich? Oh, I'm fine, brother. I'm blessed. I'm wonderful. And now not only do you have the stress and the weight of the chains you built and the shame of trying to get rid of it, but you couldn't quite do that, but now you're a liar. And now because you've told this whole room, whether you've told the congregation, whether you've told a whole room of guys, whether you told the 6 guys you're sitting around the table with, you're saying, I'm fine, I'm great. How can I tell anybody about this now? Because they don't want to hear about it. They don't want to hear about it. All of this grows in the shadow. When you talk, you open up, you tell someone about it, it's on the table, and that's when shame loses power. Yes, you might have to say, hey guys, not only am I dealing with this, and I'm sorry for that, I've been lying to you also. And that's why Man in the Mirror, a lot of these different accountability groups, one of the questions they ask you is they say, ask these questions, go through these things, if someone trusts you in that area. But then at the end, have you lied about me to anything? And it's about building that trust where you can say, hey, here's what I am, here's what I dealt with. But the nice thing about these chains and these links is addictions and changes are both good and bad, and you change them the same way. So you're not going to be able to just instantly. Now, can the Holy Spirit, can Jesus, can He instantly heal you of things? Absolutely. There's probably men in this room who have been healed that way. But more often, it's probably a case of just saying, okay, I'm going to make the decision day by day that eventually that doesn't have a hold of me anymore. And maybe a couple things, it's just like, maybe one day you wake up and you're a dad, you have a beautiful daughter, and suddenly the idea of somebody's daughter, this porn doesn't have weight on it. And you might still have some slip-ups, you might still fail again. We're not perfect. We still have to, and the other thing is we still have to deal with the outcomes and the results and the consequences of what we've done. But eventually, you get a little bit more, and now you have people that you know that you say, hey, I messed up last weekend. And you have people alongside you can work through that. And so good habits or bad habits can do that. The first time I presented the second part of this presentation, I was at a Pentecostal church in Peoria. Oh, see, I didn't even know I still had that one on there. And a guy came up to me afterwards, and he said something that I thought, man, that's a great quote. I got to find out where that quote came from. I said, hey, what's that quote? He goes, oh, that's something my family's passed down. I said, well, where'd it come from? I don't know. I said, well, I'm quoting you then. So Charles Veal from Peoria said, good or bad, you are what you are because you chose not to be what you might have been. I'm going to say that again because it took me about 6 times. There's handouts in the back there that have it on the bottom of that too. But good or bad, you are what you are because you chose not to be what you might have been. I thought that was just powerful. So when you have a decision to make of, I'm going to pick up a chain, am I going to pick up this old rusty chain that I know is bad for me, or can I try to go towards a better chain? What choice are you going to make? And as you make more choices, you're building the change that's going to set the course of the rest of your life. So now a lot of ministries were created and built around this idea of escape the trap, break the chains, break the chains. But again, when you're breaking a chain, when you're in a trap, the damage has been done. I grew up in Eastern Oregon, across the street from a wheat field. When it got cold this time of year, guess what we got in our house? Mice. And because of liability, I didn't want to bring mouse traps or rat traps around and have anyone say, hey, does this really hurt? Yes, it does. But here's the thing. Here's the bait they're looking at. You want to go to that mouse and say, hey buddy, you want me to help you escape from that trap? It's too late. Marriages can be shattered. Relationships, trust can be gone. And so years ago I started talking, let's bring this up, sorry. I started talking about the idea of, yes, we want to talk about being aware of how chains are built, but also instead of escaping the trap, I started talking about resist the bait and avoid the trap. So our goal is try to avoid that. Now, anyone here like fishing? Anyone here wish you were fishing instead of being here today? Don't. Careful, trick question. All right. Hey, nobody fell for that at all. So, all right. So, if you're trout fishing, what do you use? The fly. Why do you use a fly?
To mimic what they normally eat.
Because that's what they normally eat. Excellent. All right. If you're going for like crappie, what do you use?
Jig.
Crappie jig, because it looks like what?
Minnow.
It looks like a little minnow. It looks like something they eat. Okay, we're going great here. Here's the next question. Why do we use chicken livers for catfish? How did catfish get a taste for chicken livers? I don't know. I want an answer to that someday. So the thing is, when you're trying to trap something, you use cheese or peanut butter for mice. You use something. You use what you know works. And here's the thing: Satan knows this, and he doesn't know our hearts. He's not all-knowing like God and Jesus was, but he's a master observer. He can see where things are at. And when we're making these choices and we're deciding, okay, what are we going to show? Years ago, I had an umbilical hernia. Our son was about a year and a half old or so. My wife and I started thinking, well, maybe it's time to start our family up again and enlarge it. And so you kind of have that discussion with the doctor. Hey, doc, we're thinking about starting a family. I just had surgery here. When maybe do you think we could start thinking about extending the family again? And he kind of smiles. He says a line that, again, one of those lines like, oh, that's great. Let me write that down right now. He says, when the ecstasy outweighs the agony, you'll be just fine. Basically saying, you're going to know if it ain't time yet. But when the ecstasy outweighs the agony, whether it's pornography, whether it's drugs, whether it's whatever we use to escape the pain that's in our lives, when does the ecstasy outweigh the agony of what can happen down the road? Talk about, Satan can't read our mind. I was in China. I made 2 trips there for work. I worked for a little tractor company used to be based in Peoria. And I was in China last night of the trip. Hotels are not the most comfortable beds over there, let me tell you. And I was walking around Shanghai and flying out the next morning. I saw McDonald's. I love McDonald's. I didn't know how much I love McDonald's till I saw one in China, actually. But I got back to the hotel, walk onto an empty elevator, thinking my back's killing me. I was thinking specifically, what I wouldn't do for a massage. I turn around on this empty elevator, and a young Chinese girl looks at me and says, you like massaging? It was like, oh, Satan, you're trying to get. And it's like, no, I just need my Big Mac. I got off the elevator, took the stairs up to my room. But he was probably looking at me 3 nights before and saying, his back looks like it's bothering him. What am I going to use? And the thing is, Satan is willing to wait years to trip you up. When we tell our kids if it's about drugs or pornography, whatever, we say, you do this, you're going to get trapped for life. Because if you do this, you're going to do this. And they have one friend that does it and doesn't get into that trap right away. They're going, who am I going to trust? Who am I going to believe? In fact, after the temptations in the wilderness, the devil didn't admit defeat. We kind of like this idea of, and Satan said this and Jesus said, and Satan said this and Jesus said, yes, claim the victory. And this says the devil left him until an opportune time. He does the same thing to us. He doesn't just say, okay, we kind of get away. We think, well, we made it. We escaped. Satan's thinking, you know what? In 25 years, I can use that on him. Any football fans in here? Oh, yeah. You ever seen a play run in the first or second quarter, and you're like, well, that was kind of a weird one. But then the last play of the game, they set up that same way. They do the same thing, but they saw that cornerback bite, and boom, it was a touchdown. Satan does the same thing to us. Oh, boy, did you see that? Well, I know what he's interested in. I know what he's looking at. I know how to distract him. But I'm not going to do it this week, because if I wait another 20 years, I could destroy an entire church ministry or marriage or family. And he's patient enough to wait for maximum destruction. He's not there just after us. So when I say the bait, okay, yeah, we know it's, most of us are not going to be tempted by chicken livers. Am I correct? There might be a couple. Not many? All right. Whew. All right. So I'm always scared someone's going to say, I love chicken livers. So what is bait? It's an acronym. First one is blind spots. What's going to get us in trouble that we don't even know? You can't see it without changing position or having someone else watching and having your back and looking there, a mirror. I've gotten a couple, no one wakes up in the morning and says, you know, I think today I'm gonna get hooked on drugs, pornography, and destroy my marriage and family and never talk to my kids again. But that happens, but that's not the plan. And I've gotten a couple of those tough calls from a friend that says, she found out what I'm doing. She saw something on my phone or on my computer or whatever. And that, I mean, that's when if you've ever been in a car wreck where you didn't see it happen and then bam, you just hear the crunch of the metal and the damaged tires popping, airbag goes, and that's when that mousetrap goes. The damage is there. How are you going to get through it? But if you're focused, you're looking at your blind spots, that can at least reduce the chances of that happening. The A is for apathy. Terrible problem, but who cares? When we start making excuses for, well, you know, but this really isn't a drug, or this, and you know, some people have heard that and say, well, oh, you know, alcohol terrible. I'm not going to never ever have anything touch of alcohol. That's up to personal convictions. But when it's drunkenness or it causes you a problem, it's not for you. I quit drinking before I became a Christian as a senior in college because I realized I was drinking to celebrate every week or to get over every week. And before I had the Holy Spirit saying, hey, that's good, I'm just like, that's not good, and that's going to be really expensive getting out of school doing that. So apathy, they say don't sweat the small stuff, but what's the filter? What's your filter? What are you going to use? I like apathy is not an intentional act or decision. It's a passive disconnection from caring. And so when I say apathy is part of the bait that can get us trapped, it's a matter of being intentional about what you care about and what you don't. Set your decisions and make your decision about what you will or won't do before the options in front of you. I is for inclinations. How are we doing on time? All right, I'm going to speed up a little bit. Inclinations, what are the things you lean towards? Shortly after I started, again, just really new into my Christian walk, a group of new hires said, hey, let's go out to eat, and then maybe we'll stop at the Paradise Casino boat in Peoria. It was like, okay, I like to eat. So we went to the buffet, and first we're parked and we're walking in, and a friend of mine there says, hey, Rich, you're not really taking your wallet in there, are you? And I'm like, yes, I need to pay for things. But they have credit card machines in there. You might end up spending a lot more than you want. He was talking about the gambling side. I'm looking at the restaurant going, oh, that looks good. But the thing was, we go through the buffet, and I got my food, he got his. He sat down, I had this really weird thing. I should have grabbed a plate from the buffet here. He has a really weird thing you could see on his plate called his plate. Couldn't see any of the plate on mine. I had like this wonderful, like I had the perfect, the perfect angle they call for the Egyptian period. I had everything covered, and he had half his plate showing. But he was concerned about the credit card when he got to the casino side, and I'm like, I could take a $20 bill and stop at $8.25 because I'm cheap. That's not my inclination. That's not where my trouble part is. But the buffet was, I was going to get my worth out of it. So. But that's his versus lining. Same thing when you talk about your kids and you train them up in the way he should go. It doesn't mean everyone does it this way. It's, hey, this kid has a different leaning than this one. How can you parent them differently? And final, the T for bait. Talking about pornography and addictions. Who wants to guess what the T is? You'll probably be wrong. But go ahead. Anyone? Who wants to think temptations? No. A few brave people still raise their hands, even though like, no, he said he'd be wrong if that's what it was. Here's the thing, guys, you don't escape temptation by thinking about temptation. It's physically impossible. If I tell you guys, whatever you do right now, don't think about a purple roller skating rhinoceros. Anyone thinking or trying to think of what a purple roller skating rhinoceros would be? So in this case, I don't want you thinking about, I need to avoid thinking about porn and drugs. No porn and drugs, no, because that's naturally going to take you back to that. I want you to think about what's your tipping point. Similar to inclinations. Inclinations is knowing, okay, I have a tendency to fail in this area. Knowing your tipping points is saying, okay, if here's the edge of the table, how far back do I need to be? People talk about guardrails. It's like, I don't like guardrails when I'm going to cliffs or anything, but most people look at those rails and say, hey, I feel safer going closer to the edge because I know I'm safe. Each of us has to make that decision. What is the guardrail going to be for you? Knowing what your limits are. Are you someone that, I used to laugh in Peoria, in central Peoria, there used to be a Weight Watchers gathering right across the hall from an ice cream shop. I never did, because we go to eat like a restaurant, there's a couple doors down, but there are times I want to just sit and see how many people celebrated their Weight Watchers session by going to the ice cream place. Know your limits, respect your limits with caution, not legalism. Just because you feel no one should ever do this, with some exceptions, doesn't mean you have the right to automatically start getting someone else's face about theirs. We're all mature. When you're a brand new Christian and you hit them with 4,000 laws that you've developed over 40 years, that's not going to help them come to Christ. It's working with them. What chain are they dealing with? What's their bait versus yours? In my case, after a few years of marriage, late night, I'm a night owl and flipping channels late at night. Comedy Central comes on. Comedy Central has some ads you shouldn't be watching late at night. I love stand-up comedy. I love the timing. I love, as my son was growing, we'd analyze and talk about different comedians. I blocked Comedy Central. Well, about a month after that, my wife went to watch something. She goes, "Hey, this channel isn't on here." I had explained to her, here's why. And another time I went to, I was on a business trip, I'd left in the morning, I come back, and she knew just that I was gone, and there should be no one else in the house. So I'm grabbing something, a phone charger or something, and as I'm coming around the corner, the door slams open. Here's my wife with a, I'd love to say a baseball bat. We didn't have one in the house at the time. We were putting up blinds around the different windows, and she had some blinds, and she was ready to take a swing at me. Why? Because no one else was supposed to be in the house. And with pornography, that's exactly what you're doing, is you're bringing someone else into your house, into your bedroom, into your marriage, into your relationship if you're not married yet, that doesn't need to be there. And will cause issues, and just be aware. What's your bait, what's your temptation, and what are your guardrails going to be? So still not a Lone Ranger approach. You need to know what your bait is, but you need to have a buddy there to help you with the blind spots. We skip a few things. Last thing I want to say is consider a balanced approach. It's not a one, you're not going to be able to set one rule that avoids all pitfalls or traps you might have before you. Consider having a defensive side to protect yourself. This is your accountability groups. If you don't like the term accountability groups, friends you can talk to. That's all it is. If you need filters on your computer, use the filters. Get professional help. One tool I recommend, and again on the flyer that's back there just to the left of the Men of AIM, is Covenant Eyes. Sign up for Covenant Eyes. It kind of has a, here's what you've been looking at, different scenes, and if something hits their kind of something within their filter hits, it sends it to your accountability partner that you define. You can say, "Bernie, can I trust you with this? Can I send this to you?" And that's who it goes to. It doesn't go to anyone that you don't say where it goes to. If you're concerned about it, just send it to yourself. I've talked with guys who are just knowing they were going to get a note of where they've been was powerful enough to get them to think, which decision do I want to go? Ideally, someone that you see regularly at church weekly. If there's someone here you see almost every month, that's great. Worst case, but I'll throw it out there because I don't want someone to say I'm not doing this because I've got my clean church shirt on. I don't want to say anything. I'd be willing to be the partner for that for anyone who wants to put me on there. All I ask is you talk to me after this, look me in the eye and say you have permission to ask me about whatever comes. Because the question we started at the beginning, do you want to get well? Don't put a Covenant Eyes on your computer just to tell your wife and friends that you have Covenant Eyes on your computer if you're not going to allow it to do what it's there to do. 30 days, I think it's like 30 days free. Try it out. We are an affiliate for it. If you think I'm doing it to make money off it, forget it. I'll give you $20 as soon as I get it because I want to see guys get help, however that needs to be. Second side, that's the defense. Offense is the purify. Find and eliminate source. Was there something that happened, a rejection that caused you years ago to have that, to start giving that foothold? Is there self-pain, you're self-medicating? Why? The last thing, this is a tool that's been very helpful for me. I actually ran across it through Man in the Mirror and Iron Sharpens Iron. A ministry called Music for the Soul has a number of CDs for things for like losing a child, abortion. This was one they did on pornography, had the strongest response of anything they'd done. They wound up taking that music CD and come out with a documentary. When I'm on long trips, I'll listen to this as just kind of, again, it's just a reminder. It's that guardrail and say, hey, if I get tired or it's a late night hotel room, I want to have a reminder of where my priorities, what I want it to be. There are several copies back there for sale. I only sell them with the hope of being able to sell enough, for $20, sell enough that I can then buy the next case, because I have 4 copies up here. If you're interested, you can't afford one, No questions asked. Don't say anything. Don't tell me. Don't say, oh, thanks for the free DVD. Just come up and grab one. Because if this is a tool that can help you, I want it to be in your toolbox to help you serve. If you want to talk to me about anything Men of AIM or Christian movies, we can do that. There is a Christian movie that Bernie's friend put together. It's in Peoria next week. I don't want to waste time talking about Christian movies or this other stuff. This is what's important. This is what I want you guys to leave thinking about. So God bless you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Is there anything else or a closing prayer?
Yeah. Yes. And Ben, just stay in fellowship as long